Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business today with Samantha Villiard, who is regional vice president of REMAX Canada. Thanks, Samantha, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about a recent report REMAX put out on the commercial real estate market in Canada. Now, in general, Samantha, how would you describe what the real commercial side of real estate is like these days in this country?
Yeah, so it's a great report. Highly encourage everybody to take a look, whether you're an investor, a developer, or you're just interested. I think there was a lot of really interesting components out of that. But most notably, what we noticed was that developers have shifted their focus to purpose-built rental construction in many markets across the country. So multifamily, industrial real estate were the top performing asset classes, and which makes sense after the government made decisions to cancel the GST on new residential builds and also announced incentives for developers. So we're seeing that switch and that focus for purpose-built rentals, which in lockstep is followed by development for student housing and senior residences. So I thought that was quite interesting. And overall, in general, the tone is cautious optimism, I would say, in the commercial real estate sector across the country, with the Bank of Canada making their announcement on June 6th with the interest rate being reduced. I think, commercial real estate is going to have to keep up with the demand
Yeah.
of growing populations and communities, because as the report shares, there's a lot of intertwine. When a community develops and grows and the population, the demand, commercial real estate will need to keep up.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting to see that it's right across the country this time around, which is great.
Yeah. One of the things too, and it falls into sort of that multifamily, is mixed use developments, right?
Yes.
And you see it everywhere, where especially where a lot of the property owners, like big property owners, are taking land from, say, some shopping center sites and building there. Can you talk a little bit about
Yes,
why
that
that's
was interesting. And we're noticing it a lot in a lot of the urban centers, city centers, where developers or landowners are realizing that the best use of those properties is to increase density. So they're taking things like malls, shopping centers, plazas, and so they're building and adding on residential components and meeting the demands of those growing populations and communities. So what do those communities need? Well, they need daycare facilities. We need shelter. We need a retail space. And so I think the report is showing, or I can see that the report is showing that even retail space is, still going strong. Bricks and mortar is still strong, even with the shift with e-commerce lately and that whole boom we had throughout the pandemic.
yeah.
People are still needing that sense of community and retail space and facilities. So yeah, to your point, the developers are starting to be innovative and start to realize that they can reap the benefits of building up.
And can you talk a little bit about the industrial side of things? I know that that sector has been on fire, like basically everywhere in the country in the past couple of years, especially. Why has that happened, and do you see it continuing?
Yeah, I think businesses are getting back into the swing of things. And what was notable in the report I thought was interesting was that the land use for industrial spaces like warehousing and they are focused outside of major city centers. So we're seeing the growth that they're making up for the growth there, and that seemed to show throughout the country, specifically in the Greater Toronto area where they started to grow into Hamilton, Niagara region. So I thought that was a interesting note in the report. I agree.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the kind of negative side of things, and it's the office sector, especially downtowns, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if that office sector will ever recuperate, considering all the changes that have taken place in the workplace.
Yeah, I do see that those office spaces and they will have to become innovative, and so we're seeing over the last couple of years, and I can see the focus is being put towards developers looking at those office spaces and converting them into residential suites or homes. It doesn't work for every office building. I realize there's many challenges with that. However, it's an innovative way, creative way to make more homes in Canada. Is it the answer to everything in our housing crisis? No, none of this is the answer, but little bits at a time and little creative ways here and there is definitely making a little bit of a headway, I would say.
Yeah, and as you look, we're almost halfway through the year. What's the second half of 2024 look like in the commercial real estate
Yeah,
sector?
again, I think there's optimism there that there's a bit of hesitation to see, but I think with the growing populations, I think with residential sales making a bit of a shift now that buyers have seen that the interest rates have come down. Hopefully that'll increase inventory again. And like I said, when these communities are growing and the residential space is growing and being healthy, then the commercial factor will need to, or commercial sector will need to keep up. And so I have high hopes for the fall of 2024 and remainder of the year to be a neat shift in commercial that we haven't seen in the country yet. And so I'm excited to see where it goes. That's for
Oh,
sure.
all right, wonderful. Well, thanks, Samantha, for joining us today.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Samantha Villiard, who is Regional Vice President of REMAX Canada. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's podcast team, Care of Business today. Thanks for joining us.